right, good Tuesday afternoon, everyone. Thanks for stopping by for a check of your forecast. Hope everyone's doing well today. It is November 25th, year of our Lord 2025. We are getting close to 4 o'clock this afternoon here in Amarillo. We are tracking some big changes in the forecast. Again, we are going to have some cold mornings through the rest of this week. Some wind chills even tomorrow morning could be down into the teens. So definitely cold, but it's about to get so much worse moving into next week in regards to that brutal cold weather. And that's something that we'll have to really break down into a deeper detail for you here in just a few minutes. But right now we're just post frontal at this point. We have got a few clouds kind of streaming overhead. Other than that, it is a fairly cool day. Highs have made it into the 50s for most of us. 40s though for Dalhart and Boise City, where again that cold air has been in place a little bit longer. Winds are still a bit breezy at 15 to 25 miles per hour. It's not a crazy windy day, but definitely on the breezier side. And those winds we do expect them to calm down overnight tonight, but still will have a bit of a bite to them by the time you wake up in the morning. Winds are going to be light, around 5 to 10 early on Wednesday. Temperatures are going to be in those mid 20s, which means that the wind chills will likely be in the upper teens. Take a jacket with you if you're going to spend some time outside early in the morning. And then those highs tomorrow, I think it will be a struggle, but we do eventually get back up into the low 50s. It won't be for very long. It is going to be a fairly chilly day on Wednesday. Thursday morning for Thanksgiving, we expect to fall back below freezing again across most of the area. Maybe not as bad as it will be tomorrow, but the afternoon won't be bad. It'll actually be very seasonal for Thanksgiving Day, and then we'll have another warm day again on Friday out ahead of our next big weather system. So this is the outlook from the next 6 to 10 day forecast from the Climate Prediction Center. You can see they've got a bulk of that colder weather really bottled up in the Midwest, but we will get the effects of that, at least the back door side of that, on Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and probably Tuesday. We may even get another surge of colder air late next week. So broad scope of things is it's about to get cold and stay cold for a prolonged period of time. The Climate Prediction Center does have us with a slightly favorable chance to be wetter than normal between December 1st and December 5th. This really highlighting probably Monday and Tuesday more in particular than the second half of the week, but it is something that models are still in very much disagreement on, and that's something that we'll try and break down and talk about why that's the case. Moisture, I don't know if it's going to be guaranteed. The cold weather, high confidence that we are going to be well below average. We may even have a day or two where we stay below freezing, pending if we get any moisture, and again, have a blanket of snow on the ground. So this is the GFS model. I just want to show you kind of the difference between each of these models. You can see there's this really pronounced trough extending here through the desert southwest, but it is what we call an open wave. There's no closed area of circulation aloft with this trough swinging across the southern portion of the continental US. And so if this happens, these positively tilted troughs usually don't pull in a whole lot of moisture from the Gulf. You can see we do have a ridge down here built up over Cuba. And so we are going to get some moisture to pull into the Gulf Coast, but with how the trough is oriented, it's probably going to stay relatively far south in the latitude. So moisture with this system probably going to stay mainly south towards Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia. Whether or not we get any moisture here, it would probably be an extremely limited amount should we get something like this to set up overhead moving into Monday and Tuesday of next week. Now, on the other side of this is the European outlook, and it's got a different story to tell. It does have a closed upper level low on the bottom side of this trough as it extends into the desert southwest. Should we get this, even though it is a positively tilted wave, there's a closed area of circulation. These tend to have a better opportunity to pull in some moisture with these systems. And so when I show you the ensemble outputs for snow chances and probabilities to reach specific thresholds, you're going to really tell a big difference between the European and the GFS or the American model, especially in regards to the lighter amounts of snowfall. There's a lot better consensus from the Euro than there is from the GFS at this point in time. We're hoping by the time we get to maybe Friday, these models start coming into more alignment and better agreement, and that will build our confidence on what exactly we can expect Monday and Tuesday of next week. Just know that there are some low end pops there, for maybe that chance for some snow, but we're still looking for consistency even though we're 5 to 6 days out. We do have a weak system that's going to come through on Saturday. That cold front is going to be sharp, but the amount of moisture that's associated with it should be relatively limited. But this is just the chances that we have for maybe a very light dusting of snow on Saturday throughout the day. It's really going to come down to how far west that low develops before it starts to track to the northeast towards Chicago. Right now, Amarillo sitting around a 10 to 20% chance to even just see flurries at this point on Saturday. 20 to 40% chance for a dusting of snow up near the Oklahoma Panhandle, and then there's about a 40 to 60% chance that maybe southwest Kansas, areas like Dodge City, and then back up towards the northwest side of the state, could see maybe a couple inches of snow. If we do inevitably see that system dive far enough south and far enough west, I don't think it'll be a lot, but we maybe have as much as an inch of snow potentially from that system. It will be our first winter weather event of the year for the winter season, but we're really eyeing Monday and Tuesday for a hopefully better chance for some precipitation, even if it is going to be winter weather. So these are the ensembles that I'm showing you. We've got 3 criteria listed here. We've got a 1/10 of an inch of snow, which is just enough to be measurable. We've got 1 inch of snow, which falls under our winter weather advisory criteria. And then we have 5+ inches of snow, and that's the winter storm warning criteria for us here in the Texas Panhandle. This could vary if you're up in the Dakotas. You guys see a lot more snow than us, and so your threshold is much higher to see those winter storm warnings criteria met versus what we have down here. But you've got the Euro, the GFS, and the Canadian outruns or outputs here from the ensembles. Notice the drastic difference in the European and the American model on if we're even just going to get something measurable that's related to snowfall or winter weather. The European is starting to come into pretty good alignment that it thinks we will see at least some light precipitation early next week, Monday and Tuesday in particular. There's about 80% of the ensembles displaying at least a 1/10 of an inch of snowfall through that 5-day stretch next week. Monday and Tuesday, really the 2 days that we're kind of eyeing, though. The GFS, it's not very good agreement. There's not a good consensus right now. In fact, if you're going to call it a consensus, 70% of them say we are going to be in the dry slot. We're not going to see any moisture from that system. And again, that's just due to it being a positively tilted open wave trough rather than being a closed upper level low. So that's the big difference. When we get closed lows, we usually draw in better moisture, and that's what you can see here. The European with that closed low has at least a better consensus of, yeah, there's going to be some moisture with this system that comes through next week, whereas the GFS and the Canadian not as sold on us getting moisture in the first half of next week. Now, they still have a few outputs that do suggest we could have some moisture. I mean, if you come over here, look at kind of the outlier extremes, the GFS does have 3 model outputs that show us more than 5 inches of snow next week. That having a lot to do with how dry that snow might be. And even if we do get minimal moisture and it's only maybe a 1/4 inch of precipitation, the temperatures with those 3 runs specifically are exceptionally cold, like temperatures down into the single digits and the teens for an extended period of time. That would put our snow to liquid ratio somewhere on the order of about 40 to 1. That's not typical. That's an outlier scenario. At least those 3 are. I would not bank on that happening, but it's something that can't be completely ruled out at this point. I would venture to believe if we do see winter weather next week, it would be on the very light amounts, probably on the order of a dusting to an inch, maybe a couple inches in some isolated areas. But that's still, again, it's kind of a low option or opportunity for right now. The GFS and the Canadian have us at about a 10 to 20% chance to even get to an inch of snowfall next week. So here's what the 7-day tracker looks like. There's a lot of confidence that temperatures are going to be well below normal. That is something you can kind of lock into the forecast. We think we'll maybe even struggle to get above freezing on Sunday and Monday. Tuesday, it's going to come down if we have snowpack or not on the ground. The way we have your forecast displayed now, 41 would kind of suggest that we don't have snow left around on the ground, and it helps us warm back up above freezing. But it's going to be cold for several mornings. Temps down into the teens, wind chills potentially as low as about 0 degrees for the morning hours on Sunday and Monday. And then highs, it's going to take an all-day attempt to even get back up past the freezing point. So it is going to be a very drastic drop in temperatures compared to where we've been really for much of November. I mean, it's been cool-ish this week, but that step-down process really going to be a big drop and a big step on Saturday when that cold front comes through. We've got you at 59 Friday, 50 degrees on Saturday, and that down arrow suggesting that the high of the day probably happens before lunchtime. It's going to be not a terrible start in the morning, but when that front gets here, we could drop 20 to 30 degrees in the matter of about 4 or 5 hours. This is going to be almost like a borderline blue northern like front where those temperatures just drop exceptionally quickly. And again, with the sharp front of that magnitude, it's not uncommon for us to get a quick dusting of snow behind them, but the moisture is usually limited with them. And that's why that chance is still pretty low, around 20%. So don't bank on seeing snow Saturday, something we can't rule out. And then Monday and Tuesday, again, there's just a lot of disagreement in model outputs, and that's kept our confidence pretty low. If models do come into better agreement, you will see the pops change on Monday and Tuesday. And I do think that that's kind of the window that we're watching more closely. Temperature is definitely going to be cold. And another thing that we may need to keep an eye on is if we have a warm nose or some warm air aloft, especially on Monday, we may have some southwest flow over our head. Southwest flow usually keeps those temperatures above our head a little bit warmer than the surface, even though we do have a cold front undercutting a lot of that warmer air. So that's another thing to watch. If the temperatures are above freezing, say, at the 700 millibar layer, then we may get a lot of melting happening with any snowflakes that try and fall through that layer of the atmosphere. And if they melt completely and we're below freezing at the surface, then you start getting into the sleet or freezing rain side of things. And we don't want to talk about that stuff, but something we can't rule out either. Thank you guys so much for stopping by. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Don't forget to hit that like button, and we'll see you tonight at 5, 6.